Let us go. Here we are, folks. Here we are. Sunday at 1 o'clock. The Colts and the Jags, they will kick at Lucas Oil Stadium, the 2023 season. Underway. Fox kick, by the way.
Yeah.
Fox kickoff. I think the first 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. So definitely check your TV listings with AFC, NFC matchups this year. I think they've kind of thrown out the old CBS versus Fox sort of nature to the NFL schedule. But we'll break it all down for you right here, Kevin's Corner. It is our season preview pod. We'll get a Jacksonville focus on it right before Twitter questions. And then at the end, Eddie Garrison and I got to give out some picks. We're going to give out some season picks. And certainly one for Sunday as well. I think last I saw, Jacksonville favored by 5 in this opener. Eddie Garrison, how you doing, man? We have made it.
Yes, indeed we have. Want to thank everyone who's in the Fantasy Football League. We had our draft Monday night. Also, I will put in the description.
Great efficiency in that draft. People were in a great rhythm there.
I felt like it took forever.
That was sarcastic.
I was hoping you were being sarcastic. I couldn't tell if you were being serious or not.
So I had a draft with my buddies start a half hour after ours started.
Oh, my.
And it ended.
So you were multitasking?
It ended a half hour before.
How'd you do that?
Ours, and I just had 2 windows up. I had the first pick. I had the last pick in ours, right?
Yes.
I had the first pick in the other one.
And then I somehow got the first pick in ours.
Which was great because I was just like, all right, boom, boom. Once I have my 2, then I can take a break for 3 to 4 minutes and then regroup with that. So, yes, thank you to you, Eddie, for setting up the league, and thank you to everybody who participated in that. We still have our Pick'em League, right?
I know. Yes, that's what I was about to say. If you are a watcher on YouTube, I will put the link to join in the description of the YouTube. And if I'm smart enough, I'll figure out how to put up a card within right around this timestamp frame. So if you're on YouTube, you can just check the description. You can join that way. And then I'll put the link out when I tweet out the pod as well. So
Cool. I appreciate you doing that. Again, a lot to get to on today's pod. Like we usually do in the regular season, the Wednesday pod will have, that Sunday focus to previewing the upcoming game. Obviously, this is our only pod of the week coming off the holiday weekend. So we'll also get a little big picture, just overall season preview. But our goal during the season will be kind of late Monday morning. We will record the review pod of what just happened. And then we will come back with a Wednesday afternoon. Like to get through at least the first practice day, hear from Shane Steichen, hear from Anthony Richardson, and give you a little bit of a shorter pod. This one will probably be a little bit longer, but a little bit shorter on Wednesday than what we typically go on Monday.
You want to tackle 6 answers for the season first, or you want to do a brief recap of practice from today? How you want to handle it?
Well, I would say before we get to the 6 answers, Eddie, I think this is just my general thought, 72, 96 hours before kickoff of I do genuinely mean this. I think this is a really exciting time to be a Colts fan. The last time we were previewing a game, Eddie, think about it. It was, okay, these are the draft scenarios, and you had a coach that you took off TV, and people were like, oh my gosh, is he going to get the head coaching job? And Matt Ryan couldn't throw the ball from me to your microphone. And now you've gotten modern. I think you've gotten serious. I think you've tried to create real hope. And, it's funny. I go back to Rick Carlisle at the end of I think actually this is the Tyrese Halliburton. Let me text Maddie here just a second. She just called me.
I do agree with you. It's like the Tyrese Halliburton effect, a very young, energetic, exciting player that can bring fans into the building.
Yes.
And he's an easy guy to root for as well.
He is. And I want to get to Richardson's story a little bit more in just a second. But the Carlisle analogy that I was going to make, Eddie, is yes, to your point, Halliburton, the injection of life he's given that franchise speaks for itself. But what Carlisle had mentioned at Halliburton's contract extension press conference was how dark of a place the Pacers franchise was in prior to that trade. They really had no direction. And I would argue that the Colts' direction each of the last few years has been oh, wait, the ceiling is right there. Like the ceiling, I can just grab it. It's right next to me. I'm grabbing my backpack right now. It's close. The floor might be high, but the ceiling is not very far away. Whereas now, you have theoretically created a ceiling to where one day you could get to what you saw in the AFC last year of these 7 teams in the playoffs, all with quarterbacks under the age of 27. All of them have been drafted by their respective franchises, and you just aren't trying to resurrect the quarterback for the, 4th straight year? I mean, that's what you were trying to do. In some way, shape, or form, with Rivers, with Wentz, and Ryan, you were trying to say, nope, the gas that was in the tank at the previous stop, we're going to put better fuel in that tank. And it just never worked out. And even if it did work out, it's not like you would create anything long term. You would maybe create what you got out of, Rivers in that COVID season of, making the playoffs as a wild card team. But yeah, you were very competitive against Buffalo in that game. But that was not a team that was going to get on some deep playoff run. So sure, we have to be up front with expectations. And I did think, Eddie, and shout out to my co-host Andy Sweeney in the mornings here in Indianapolis. He made a really good point earlier today about how, evaluating Richardson, evaluating wins and losses, those will be the first 2 points I think a lot of people go to this season. But, I mean, we can still evaluate a lot of position groups through that lens of, how playoff caliber are you? Because, O-line needs to be like that. These are massive seasons for your defensive line. What is Shaq Leonard at this point of his career? What is Kenny Moore after last season? We can still evaluate individuals and position groups in a different lens than Richardson. I think that will be something that we have to do. So here you are. I mean, you got a potential at quarterback who stresses the defense, and the Colts haven't had a quarterback who stressed. I mean, honestly, the only thing the Colts quarterback has done lately is stressed fans more than stressed an opposing defense. And sure, there'll be moments where Richardson probably stresses you out as a fan, but at the same time, he actually makes a defensive coordinator think. I mean, listening to Doug Peterson today at his press conference describe the challenge with Richardson, it's that a little different than opposing teams getting ready for the Colts lately. And now it's mold, support, develop, all those things. I think in years past, Eddie, you had to hit 15 singles to score 3 runs. You had to play small ball like none other. And now you have an ability to play a little bit more in the big park. And we'll see how it all evolves. And I think for the most part, fans are really open-minded to this. When you have to watch 60 minutes of football week in and week out and the losses do potentially start to pile up, maybe that'll change. But I do think fans understand the path that the Colts have gone down here. And maybe this is a little tease for the end of the pod, but I don't think the win total is going to be as low as some people believe. I know there are, for example, we've had Greg Doyle and Bob Kravitz on our morning shows this week, and they've both thrown out 2 and 3 wins, and I don't think it's going to be that low, but we can hold off on that. So I guess before I got into kind of the 6 storylines to keep an eye on this season, Eddie, I do think just from a big picture view, you should be at a place as a fan to feel some hope, and I don't think you felt. And if you felt it, you knew in the back of your mind it was short term. It wasn't going to last. You weren't going to have this thing that potentially was going to be a 5 to 7 year pattern of, okay, yeah, we are a legit team in this conference, and we have staying power in this conference.
Yeah.
You've got a long way to go to create that staying power, but if you do get there, theoretically, you should have it for a decent amount of time.
Yeah, it would be fun to see Trevor Lawrence and Anthony Richardson be a headliner for like a primetime game eventually,
Sure.
The AFC South, 2 young quarterbacks clash against one another, Trevor Lawrence and Anthony Richardson. So let's dive into the first answer the Colts must find this season. You can find the blog or the website on the website. You can find the blog on the website, 1075thefan.com. It's right there on the homepage. Number 1, you talked about him, growing hope for Anthony Richardson.
We could talk about Richardson for obviously 5 hours, Eddie, but I think it boils down in some capacity, Eddie, to the accuracy of him. They need a jump, obviously, from the 44% we saw in the preseason or the 54% you saw at Florida. As I've said, if you can hover at 60, if he can hover around 60 and you don't have gobs and gobs of turnovers, you can live with that. You can live with that. So I think those are something that you have to watch because, Eddie, we've seen Anthony Richardson in 2-game settings since high school. College, he was 54%. 2 preseason games against a bunch of backups, he was 44%. So that's what we have to go off of. Now, of course, regular season, Shane Steichen, I think, will scheme up a whole lot to try and aid that completion percentage. And I go back to the opening drive of that Philly game. He did so much well in that Philly game, but the opening drive is a perfect example of you need to hit a single to keep your offense out of the margin for error. By missing that 2nd and 10 throw on the second play of the game, instead of turning that into 3rd and 4 with the entire playbook wide open, you then said 3rd and 10. What happens on 3rd and 10? The defense pins their ears back. Your offensive line is exposed. The defense can do a whole lot from an exotic standpoint, and it's not a recipe for success at all. So I would say accuracy, big playability, just making sure it transfers to the NFL level. I think it will, Eddie, but let's be honest. The NFL teams are going to be much sounder in their schematic approach to trying to take away some of the off-script stuff. I fully expect, I don't know if it's Devin Lloyd or Floyd, go ahead and pronounce his last name for me. I don't know how they'll go about spying Anthony Richardson, but I would think week in, week out, you're going to see some spy, particularly on 3rd downs against Richardson. So, Shane Steichen said today he's got some superpowers outside of the pocket in creating some of those big plays. Is that still there? I think it will be, but again, just the abundance of that. Obviously, the vertical passing game, I think he's got beautiful touch down the field. You got to make sure that you hit on some of that. And this goes back to a big reason why you don't need him at 68%.
Yeah.
But if he's going to be at 60, the big plays have got to be there. He's got to hit 45 home runs in a season, 55 home runs in a season. You can't have 27 homers and you're batting 232. You can bat 232, but you got to hit 50. That's kind of where I'm at. Obviously, the unscripted situations. You throw an interception, how do you respond? You're down 4 with 2:30 to go, how do you respond? You're at your own 20 with 57 seconds left in the first half, can you go get a field goal? When do they play Baltimore? They play Baltimore early, right?
Yeah, week 4.
Okay, you're at Baltimore week 4. That's still, kind of a hostile road environment.
Yeah.
How do you handle that? So those are the things of just you can't script it. I go back to this time last year, Eddie. This time last year, what was Anthony Richardson? He was the Heisman darling after the first game of the college football season.
Yeah.
He did the thing against Utah, scores the game-winning touchdown. Boom, it's him against Will Levis. And Anthony would be the first one to tell you this. He was kind of shitting his pants getting ready for that Kentucky game. I mean, he knew.
F and we got a shit drop here, Kevin. Are we going away from the family program aspect here?
I still can't believe that Jake Funk. I saw him out there on special teams today on the kick return, and I was like, gosh, man, I can't believe I just dropped the hard FUC. And yeah. Apologies to the Funk family. I almost said it again there. He's getting ready to face Will Levis in Florida week 2 and Kentucky week 2. Richardson's not a dummy. He knew what that game meant, and he was terrible in that game. The game that pitted him against the other big SEC East drafted quarterback. It's early in the season. It's all this Heisman hype, et cetera, et cetera. He's 20 years old, and he wilted in that moment. He did not play well. He did not run it well. He did not throw it well. He had turnovers. Just an ugly, ugly performance. So again, when he gets into some of those moments, and it's not just this season, it's also down the road. I mean, there's going to be times where he plays a Week 16 game and there's huge playoff implications on the line. Or to your point, Eddie, it's him and Trevor Lawrence in a primetime game, or it's him and C.J. Stroud in a primetime game down the road. How does he handle those things? With his mental coach, Brett Ledbetter. I mean, those types of interactions that he has. Okay, how do you deal with the fame? I mean, that is, I guess right now the documentary is just kind of fresh in my mind, but, you saw how Johnny Manziel handled it. How does Richardson handle it? Because Richardson's upbringing, Eddie, it's just it's a bit of a movie in that I mean, him and his mom and his little brother had to live in, the back rooms of families growing up. And, his mom's working multiple jobs, and literally she would leave and say to Anthony, and Anthony's little brother, for those that don't know, the age gap's about 6 or 7 years, I want to say. He's a freshman right now at Westfield High School, which is the high school where Chris Bauer's kid went here locally. I mean, he had to watch his brother. I mean, for a long, long hours. Taking him to the park and making him dinner, helping him with his homework, those sorts of things. As a high schooler, even as a junior high, 7th and 8th grader. And Richardson was not always this prized quarterback recruit. I mean, it was a wideout early on, and then he's pulled into being a quarterback, and it's not like he's going to the 5-star Elite 11 camp since he was 7th grader, 8th grader, always groomed to be. Eastside High School in Gainesville is not IMG Academy. It's not modern day high school. It's not, I was about to say it's not Bishop Sycamore. I guess that wouldn't make a lot of sense here. But how he handles all of this will be, a huge, huge thing to watch. And then lastly, Eddie, I would just say that running balance. It was kind of interesting when I asked him today what his goals were for his rookie season. He mentioned staying healthy a couple of times, and Richardson does not, first off, Shane Steichen doesn't strike me as someone that's going to hide the running ability or protect the running ability of Richardson. Richardson's playing style, to me, does not indicate one that's going to, be timid or be hesitant running it. But I did think it was kind of interesting that's what he meant from an individual goal standpoint. But anyways, just that balance, because there's going to become a point in time, Eddie, where, and let me just get this out of the way now, Anthony Richardson's going to get hurt, and he's going to miss a couple games. And we will have the debate on that Monday podcast of how much should he run. That will obviously be the storyline. And I think with Richardson, what has to happen at some point in his career is can he become a quarterback that can win games with his arm and the legs are limited in some capacity? Maybe he's got a sprained ankle and he's got to be limited to the pocket. Maybe a team does a great job spying him. And he just cannot be that usual creator runner that he is. How well can he do that? Chris Bauer, I thought, always had a great quote about at some point you've got to deliver from the pocket. Anthony Richardson at 21 would not set the combine on fire at the age of 31. But if you want to be a guy that thrives in this league for that long, you're going to have to find some other ways to win. And so I'm curious how his game evolves of the effectiveness of Anthony Richardson. Does it get to a point where I think Mahomes has really mastered this? Does Mahomes create? Certainly. Does he do things off script? Without question. But I wouldn't call Mahomes like a pure runner. I don't, and obviously he's such a gifted thrower. They don't need to, but I don't even know if athletically Mahomes would necessarily do that. He's not Lamar. He's not Justin Fields. He's not Anthony Richardson for that matter. Can Richardson get to a point where the run aspect to his game is not just like an outright necessity? It's a great weapon and one you can't ignore, but I think those will be things where he just hits some bumps in the road physically. Teams, again, start to take care of him a little bit more, how he responds to that. So, again, obviously the Richardson storyline, Eddie, will be dominant. This is the longest one that I'll talk about on today's pod. Anything else you have to add after I just ranted?
That was a good 9.5 minutes.
Was it?
Yeah. During your rant there, I was able to do some quick research. Now, I don't know how fully accurate this is, but by my quick research, only 27 rookie quarterbacks have completed 60% of their passes.
Do we have a number of how many starts that is?
It's a minimum of 14 pass attempts per game.
Okay. Yeah, you certainly saw Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen, Eddie, take big steps and kind of that. Well, I guess Hurts really didn't play a ton as a rookie. But they obviously took some big jumps within their NFL careers, within that, kind of first to second year is typically when it occurs. So, again, I'm not asking Richardson. He can't be 44%.
No.
But what I'm asking is, can you hover around 60 and I'm not necessarily saying as a rookie per se, but can you get there at some point and then you're still mashing it? As long as you're hitting enough bombs, you can more than live with that. More than live with that. I did find this, and this kind of gets into a little bit of the support around Richardson. This is the last thing I'll mention on Richardson, Eddie, before we move on. The NFL put out a stout, I think it was last week. I want to say the number's been 14 rookies have started the season opener in the last decade. I think that's right. 14 rookie quarterbacks have started the opener in the last decade. And the only two that have finished above 500 were Dak Prescott and Mac Jones. And when you think about those two quarterbacks and what they had, I mean, Mac Jones had one of the best defenses in the NFL a couple of years ago, without question. And if you look at what Dak Prescott had when they had their great rookie season, I mean, you had Ezekiel Elliott as all-pro Zeke. I mean, that was a rookie year, 1,600-yard rusher Zeke. You still had Des Bryant and Jason Witten still somewhat in their primes, and Witten obviously just a really reliable target for Dak. Obviously, they've had a very good offensive line, and their defense was still a top 5 unit. So when you think about what it takes for young rookie quarterbacks to succeed, the average win total is 5 in the last decade. So even with Dak, even with Mac Jones, and unbelievable support around those two, I would argue, particularly Dak. Mac was more on the defensive side of the ball. There's a lot of great rookie quarterbacks that you would classify on that list that only won 5, so or the average is 5 there. So obviously Richardson will be the dominant storyline, understandably so, all year long. But yeah, I got a separate article up on the website, just some things to watch for him here this season.
How convenient of them to say the last decade, because if you leave off 2012, you had 2.
Andrew and RG3?
Yeah. Christian Ponder was close.
Brandon Weeden in that draft. Ryan Tannehill in that draft.
Oh, goodness. I forgot about those guys.
Yeah, you probably had a lot start, honestly.
Yeah, I forgot about Brandon Weeden in that one. Yeah. Numero 2 on that website article that you just referenced, Jonathan Taylor's future.
Yeah, this is obviously the elephant in the room. I don't want to harp on it too long, Eddie.
Harp on it all you want, because he's on the fantasy team over here. So yeah,
I saw that. What round was that again that you took him?
I took him in round 7.
You did. That was a little. You tried to push my buttons there to get me to take him.
I did.
In there. So obviously week 5, Eddie. That's when he comes off the PUP list. Does he practice? Does he play? Then October 31st. That's the trade deadline. So in between week 5 and October 31st, you've got 4 games. Is he on the field at all? Practice or game-wise. Like, that's what I'm kind of watching for next. Again, my assumption is you're going to get through the end of the week here and no contract extension for Jonathan Taylor. I assume that means Michael Pittman and Grover Stewart as well. So once that happens, Eddie, now we're to a situation that really Chris Ballard has never gone through.
Now, should that right there be a message to JT simultaneously? Hey, you're not the only guy we're not extending right now. We didn't extend Pitt, and we didn't extend Grove. And you know how outwardly spoken Chris Ballard is about his affection towards Michael Pittman Jr.
Yeah, I think you could say some of that. I also think, based off of what Shaq Leonard and Braden Smith and Quentin Nelson specifically, what those guys did through their rookie deals, that's more in the Taylor camp. Whereas Grover, this would be, his 3rd contract in the NFL?
Yeah.
It's not a rookie deal. And then
more
Pittman,
so Pitt than...
Yeah, but I don't think we can put Pitt in those guys' categories yet. Pitt's yet to be a 1,200-yard wideout. He's yet to garner any serious Pro Bowl consideration. I like Michael Pittman a lot, but I would have said this to you 2 months ago. I don't know if Pittman necessarily deserves it. Again, I think if you're not going to extend Taylor, I think you got to get somebody locked up just to have that insurance in place, because you never know how the season is going to unfold here. But I think once we get into the season, now we have the late extension for Quentin Nelson that happened back a few years ago, or the late extension for Nyheim Hines that happened just a few nights before the start of the regular season. Once you get there, now what Ballard said last week about, we've extended guys at all different points of the offseason, all that's out the window. Because outside of Grover Stewart, Nobody got extensions in season out of that rookie contract group there. So, again, the Taylor storyline is going nowhere anytime soon.
And number 3, pillar trench positions. I want to start specifically with Kwity Paye because there's been so much offseason discussion about Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor, and rightfully so. And then you can even loop in Bernhard Raimann into that grouping because I think he's gotten a lot of attention as well.
Which we'll get to here.
Yeah. But I want to start with Kwity Paye specifically because he's somebody that I circled as if I had to rank 3 players that have to prove something this year, I could make the case that Kwity Paye is number 1 on my list.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Eddie. A question I've asked some of our guests we've had on over the past few days and week or so is the Colt you're most curious about non-Richardson-Taylor division for this season. And it sounds like you'd put Paye first on that list, maybe. And I totally hear you out on it. Again, quarterback, wide out, left tackle, D-end, cornerback. Those positions mean more than the others, in my eyes. So when I'm talking pillar positions, particularly in the trenches, left tackle, defensive end. I mean, I really think that those are 2 position groups that if you can get a answer of yes on Kwity Paye and or Bernhard Raimann, that does so much for you moving forward. Now, Kwity, this is a pseudo contract year because following the 3rd season for first-round picks, that's when you have to make the decision on if you pick up that 5th-year team option on Kwity Paye or not. So, next spring, you have a decision to make on him, obviously based off this year.
Yep.
So this is a really important season. I continue to watch Paye, and I think I see power, I see effort, I see a little pop. I don't see anywhere near the amount of pop that I think people thought when he had the, mind-numbing testing numbers at his Michigan Pro Day. And remember, that production at Michigan, it wasn't very, All-American-like from a sack, tackle for loss. And, you get in some debates how he was used in Michigan, things like that. So when do we see it? Is this a legit double-digit sack guy, or is this a guy that's more of a 6-7 sack guy based off effort and, other sorts of things? Because if you can have just a dominant edge that, even if you get away from the sack numbers, if you can consistently dial up some pressures off the edge, and now you make a quarterback think twice about getting to that 5 or 7 step drop, if that quarterback thinks he's got to sit a little bit more in the 3 and 5 step area, boom, that's where DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart can feast.
Yeah.
So again, Kwity Paye, absolutely massive. You could probably throw Dayo Dangbo into this group because it's his 3rd season as well.
But he doesn't have the 5th-year option.
He doesn't have the 5th-year option. Now, he's got one last year. I mean, in 5 months, Dayo Dangbo is now entering a contract year. It's just wild to think about that. I mean, once he gets through this year 3, year 4 is a contract year for him as a 2nd-round pick. So I think he kind of falls a little bit in this category. And then again, Raimann. If you had to make me choose one of the 2, I actually think Raimann is the one that I'd probably go with as having a future. I might be premature with that. It might be more of the Colts don't have a whole lot off the edge from an eye-popping standpoint that I thought Raimann had a pretty good training camp here. But obviously a critical season for him because if you look at the depth chart right now, Eddie, you've got Bernhard Raimann at left tackle. You got Braden Smith at right tackle. Your 2 backup offensive tackles are a pair of rookies that were drafted on day 3. Blake Freeland at right tackle and Ryan Hayes, who you just claimed last week at left tackle as a 7th rounder.
Because they got rid of Dan Skipper off practice squad.
Off the practice squad. Arlington Hambright maybe, but again, he's still on the practice squad. So your backup tackles right now are 2, again, day 3 rookies. And we watched a day 2 rookie last year in Raimann have some clear growing pains when he got in the lineup. So I think your goal right now as a franchise is, I talk about the 5 premium positions. Obviously, Richardson, you feel good about a quarterback. What else can you enter a draft with and say, we don't need to touch this? Like Anthony Costanzo gave you that window there for a handful of years where you didn't need to touch left tackle early in the draft.
Yeah.
Can you do that again? Can you get back to that point where you don't have this urgency with one of those premium spots? So pillar positions, Kwity Paye, Bernhard Raimann at their respective spots.
Baltimore's week 3. I got them and the Rams backwards. Baltimore 3, Rams are week 4.
Ton of AFC South around all that, right?
Yeah, I would say, was Baltimore the first real test of a, pass rush threat for Bernard Reimann? But you look at those.
Josh Allen, I still think can give you some issues here in week 1. I don't know. Maybe I've got PTSD from what he's done against the Colts. I know they didn't have a great pass rushing unit last season, but
now
would it be Will Anderson in week 2?
Yeah. Now Reimann handled the speed rushers well last year. It was more of those power guys, correct? So that's what I'm just kind of trying to think of here.
And had a little bit of a weight change. He definitely looks a little bigger to me. I don't think it was a massive weight gain. Probably a little bit more of just a strength focus. But
so then you're probably looking like week 4 or week 5 against Tennessee when Harold Landry comes to town.
Coming off the ACL.
Yeah. Next one is up. That'll be number 4. And I think this is a good one. Very unique. Something I don't think anyone has really talked about. Credit to you for this. Shane Steichen's plate. Obviously him being the head coach and calling the plays and developing the rookie quarterback all simultaneously.
It's funny listening to Shane Steichen talk about that. I asked him today, are you curious about anything about yourself heading into Sunday? And there has been moments that Shane Steichen behind the scenes has talked to himself about how he throws the challenge flag. You have to have the challenge flag hit the ground. If it's in the air and the play is snapped, it doesn't count. It's got to be on the ground. So Shane Steichen is literally mimicking, it's like a golfer dropping the ball. It used to be you had to drop it from a shoulder length standpoint. Now you can drop it from a knee length standpoint. That's literally what he's doing with the challenge flag, working on those moments. But he admitted there were some times in the preseason where the defense was on the field and he was like, "Oh, geez, I need to pay a little bit more attention to it." And obviously he's got a timeout guy up in the booth, and he's got challenge people up in the booth to help him. But still, you need to be locked in, and it's not just the head coach and play caller responsibilities. There obviously are I don't know, 8 to 10 guys around the league that do both, that are the head coach and play callers. Maybe not 8 to 10, but there are certainly a decent amount. Let's just take the 2 most obvious ones that pop into my head, Andy Reid and Sean McVay. Andy Reid's got who at quarterback?
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes. Sean McVay's got who at quarterback? Matthew Stafford. Shane Steichen's got the project of all projects at quarterback when you're talking about a 4th overall pick. So what you're putting on the Shane Steichen plate is head coach of a 4-win football team from last year with dysfunction out the wazoo, and you're the play caller. And if you go out to a Colts practice, Shane Steichen is with Anthony Richardson pretty much every walking moment.
12.
So, 12 head coaches, and wow. So it's a little bit more. Again, of those 12, nobody's got this thing at quarterback where you need so much development. So it's 3 big boxes that Shane Steichen is checking here from a head coach to a play caller and to a quarterback where I don't want to act like you're hand-holding him week in and week out, but there's got to be a little bit of element of that early on. I know Rosie Bowen can walk, but I'm still going to hold that hand when we're crossing the street now.
Oh, yeah.
So, there is certainly that aspect to it. So I feel like it's gotten lost a little bit in the shuffle, but Shane Steichen, again, he strikes me as a super, super intelligent dude. He's very confident in himself. We saw Nick Sirianni not be able to handle that kind of early on. I think their temperaments are a little different on that end. But that is certainly something to watch. You just had a whoa. Was it something I said?
Nick Bosa, 5 years, $170 million, 122.5 guaranteed.
Those sound like big numbers.
The highest paid defensive player in the history of the National Football League.
Does that have a Chris Jones?
No.
Isn't that deserved, though? Wasn't he just the MVP?
Yeah, he was just the defensive MVP. Yeah. Which is wild to me because wasn't TJ Watt like a sack and a half or something away from Strahan's record?
I think team success has got to help.
Yeah, Travis Kelce questionable tomorrow officially against Detroit, and then Joe Burrow says he will be playing on Sunday.
Boom. Look at Eddie Garrison here with our ticker.
But yeah, when you look at those 12 coaches and their quarterbacks, I'm going to list them all here real quick just for comparison's sake, for transparency.
Sure.
You've got Miami with Tua, Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, obviously here with Richardson, Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence, Kansas City, actually 13. I forgot about Denver, Russell Wilson, Kansas City with Mahomes, Rams, Stafford, maybe. I mean, I believe he's starting. I haven't heard anything different. Brock Purdy in San Francisco, Bryce Young with Carolina. Let's see, Tampa, no. New Orleans, no. Green Bay, LaFleur and Love. Minnesota, Kirk Cousins. And then Dallas, you've got Dak, and Philly, you've got Hurts. So yeah, none of those coaches have a project. I don't want to label him as a project, but a guy that needs as much development and seasoning.
And again, it's just the threefold process of it, of the head coach, the play caller, and you feel like you've got to guide this guy a lot. So many of those quarterbacks you named, you just don't have to guide anywhere near as much. So how Shane Steichen handles it all, obviously a storyline.
All right, 2 more answers. At number 5, Pro Bowl defenders still there. Specifically, Kenny Moore, who is 28, and Shaq Leonard, who is the same age as Kenny Moe.
So we know Kenny Moore in a contract year. We know that there was a lot, off the field, on the field, discussions with Gus Bradley, Chris Ballard. I mean, certainly some uneasy moments last season from him and in regards to his role without Matt Eberflus, all of those things. So when you have as young of a room as you do around Kenny Moore, it's very, very important they get that Pro Bowl level back. And then with Leonard, Eddie, it's the harsh reality of how this league does move on. He's got to be a $20 million guy for you. If he's not a $20 million guy for you, then I think you have to have a very hard conversation with him after the season. And Eddie, it's September 6th. I'm way too early on this, but hear me out. If Shaquille Leonard has a rough season and does not play like the $20 million linebacker that he's paid to be, and the playmaking is not there, because the playmaking has to be there. I think we all agree from a first, second, third down standpoint.
That's what made him
$20 million guy.
Yeah.
So he has to bring that for you. If he doesn't, then he's just not living up to it, and he's not giving you the return on investment. And EJ Speed is probably a guy that offers a little bit more of a comparable type of player to him. So if he's not that, there is an out after this season contractually. And again, not to start fireworks on September 6th, but this is just the reality of conversations that at some point could be there. Who is Shaquille Leonard's agent? Who is Jonathan Taylor's agent?
Malky, what's his last name?
Could you imagine if the Colts got to a standpoint at the end of the season where they want to have a conversation with Malky Kawa on his client potentially taking a pay cut or potentially cutting his client and what that could do to the relationship with Jonathan Taylor? Again, we are a long ways away from getting there. But anytime you have a player that his game is so predicated on that premium physical athletic traits like a 215-pound linebacker that Leonard is, and again, his rare playmaking is what makes him 5 years, $100 million. So the contract's through 2026. I mean, it is a lengthy deal. So is he playing every snap? How is he playing? Right now he's currently still progressing through the concussion protocol. I assume he plays on Sunday, by the way. But he's still progressing through his second concussion in the last year. And this one has kept him out for 3 weeks. And last year, that one kept him out for 3 weeks with a broken nose on top of it. So, these two guys, Kenny Moore and Shaq Leonard, they have been defensive mainstays in the Chris Ballard era. Does that continue?
We've got some new light tweets from Malky Kawa.
I saw he tweeted about Taylor last night.
Yes. PFF put out a graphic of the most 10-plus yard runs since 2021. Nick Chubb with 88, Jonathan Taylor with 71. He quote tweeted that tweet and said, JT at JT23 is a beast! Exclamation point.
Hard to disagree with that, right?
Yeah, and then he liked to tweet 2 tweets today. One which would said, I would be okay with $14 million. He's earned his money. He should be one of the highest paid offensive players, but not reset the market. The other was get it done with Jimmer saying hopefully JT gets healthy. Real ones want JT for life. Go Colts.
I guess I'm going to pretend like I'm doing somebody else's job for a second. I can't imagine being an NFL agent and having time to like tweets. Yep. Can you imagine? I mean,
or having the time to
that
just
much downtime? I don't.
I mean, search because he's not mentioning it. I mean, you would have to literally be searching JT or at JT.
That is a great point. Yeah, I'm very fortunate. I have not been blessed with the brain of Kevin. Let's search my name endlessly and
sounds like
on random.
Sounds like Shaq Leonard though. Maybe that's where you got it from.
Yeah.
Final answer, contract answer for Michael Pittman Jr.
Yeah, again, I don't think we'll get something before the game starts, or before, game start on Sunday. But I guess this becomes the question, Eddie, throughout the year of how much does he prove himself? Is he that legit number one? I mean, Pittman Jr. wants to prove that he is that. He's been a little quieter. I think part of that is his personality with the whole contract thing, but what an important year for his future. I mean, he's going to get paid. It's more of the how much is he going to get paid. And obviously, in my opinion, he's a really important piece for the Colts moving forward when you consider the position he plays and the development that is needed with Anthony Richardson. So those are storylines for the 2023 season. Wanted to get to that. Eddie, let's shift gears to Sunday. 1 o'clock, a 5-point favorite, Colts and Jags. Just a couple of things.
It's 5 now?
I think it rose from 4.5 to 5. I saw the over/under 45.
Okay.
Just odd trends to this series.
Week 1 unders are my favorite bets for what it's worth.
Do you think they'll do a bluing of the canal on Friday to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of the last season opening victory?
That or what is it? Year 40 here?
Year 40, yeah. Friday is the 10-year anniversary of the win over the Raiders. I was looking it up earlier this week. There is not a single member of that Colts 53-man roster from that Week 1 win against the Raiders back in 2013 that is still playing in the NFL.
Terrell Pryor was quarterback in the Oakland Raiders.
Antoine Bethea with the big pick there to ice that one. Home team has won 11 straight in this series.
The leading receiver in that game is now a coach on the Colts staff.
It was Reggie?
Yeah.
Andrew Luck, I remember, had a big touchdown run. I remember Dwayne Allen broke his hip on a touchdown early in that game, and Jack Doyle was inactive. That started Jack Doyle being a mainstay.
Yeah.
Obviously just wild and stupid, useless now.
Remember LaRon Landry?
Oh, I sure do.
Were his arms bigger than your head?
Oh, my gosh. Bigger than my whole body. He had a little Hulk action figure in his. He also had a pet monkey. Yeah.
A pet monkey?
I know. We need to get him for Rosie's 4th birthday now that I think.
Yeah, there you go.
I think Jacksonville's got really good offensive balance, Eddie. I think it's arguably the deepest wideout group you'll face all year. Love ETN. I like Tank Bigsby when he was at Auburn there. Defensively, I think for the most part, they're pretty solid at every level. I don't think it's like an eye-popping group. For me, what stands out more than anything about Sunday, on paper, you should have one big advantage. You should have one really big advantage. Your D-line should whip their offensive line. I think their offensive line is a question mark, and with no Cam Robinson for the first 4 weeks of the season, Walker Little, their left tackle, a guy the Colts were not high on at all in the draft, is a little banged up as well. So prove it.
Who will be moving to guard when Cam Robinson comes back, by the way.
He's not like this left tackle that they've been grooming by any means. I think they've got, is the rookie at right tackle, the kid from Oklahoma? I feel like they have another rookie that they're starting on their O-line, but nonetheless, your D-line has got to win that matchup. And again, on paper, I feel like it should. You've invested so much draft pick money-wise, and you need to help out your back end too.
Anton Harrison is the name.
Is he the right tackle?
Yes, right tackle.
So, incredible youth at both tackle spots. And your D-line should win, and it needs to win, Eddie, because we know what's going on in the back end. And it's a lot of youth dealing with Darrell Baker Jr. on Zay Jones and Dallas Flowers on, Christian Kirk, or I guess Kenny Moore and more from a slot standpoint, and obviously what Calvin Ridley brings. So That will be a huge thing. I remember saying this when the schedule came out in May, Eddie. I think it's a huge advantage for the Colts getting Jacksonville week 1 for a couple of reasons. It's Cam Robinson out for the first 4 games. Jim Bob Cooter strikes me as a dude that knows. He was with Jacksonville last year. He knows everything. That dude is an encyclopedia. I guarantee you, Anthony Richardson, yesterday was the off day for players. Richardson was in the building for 8 hours. I bet Jim Bob was just feeding him everything. And the Colts know that's an advantage. I mean, Mike Caldwell, their defensive coordinator, Press Taylor, Doug Peterson, obviously. It's not like Jacksonville had any staff turnover of importance. So Jim Bob is going to know personnel, tendencies, all those things. I think that is a big advantage. But again, your D-line has got to win. Last year in the 2 matchups, Trevor Lawrence completed 45 balls and had 7 incomplete. 45 of 50 bleeping 2 in the 2 games against the Colts. 86%. In 2 actual football games.
At least he wasn't 87 or 90 or 100.
Not 7 on 7. Yeah, it's not like Drew Brees was, 96 in that one game?
Oh, gosh. I still remember watching that Monday night game because that's when he broke the record, right?
Yep. So disrupt timing. Can your D-line do that? You look back on last year's meetings, Eddie. You got shut out down there in week 2. No Pittman and Pierce. That was the game where Matt Ryan got sacked a handful of times. Paris Campbell, the best play he had was an offensive pass interference penalty. Just abysmal. Now, when you came back here and you beat them in week, 5 or 6?
Uh-huh.
That was a Deion Jackson started game.
Yeah, that was the big Deion Jackson game. Where he
catches for Jackson. He had 12, I think, of your 15 carries in that game. Michael Pittman had a huge game. 13 for 130. Obviously, Pierce had that was the best moment of the regular season, right? Pierce icing that game.
That or Jelani against Kansas City.
You go to some Gilmore plays to maybe ice some.
That one against Denver, yeah.
So, yeah, it's wild to me that the home team has won 11 straight. You got to go back to the Jacoby Brissett sack 10 times, and they shut you out here in 2017 for the last time the road team has won a matchup here. So I think Jacksonville, I think it's a really good wideout group. I think they've got strong skill, and that's why your D-line means so much.
In Game 1, Jacksonville ran for 96 yards, averaged 2.6. In Game 2, they rushed for 243 and averaged 7.4. James Robinson had 54 and Etienne at 86.
Gosh, I was looking at this Nick Bosa contract. Those are some eye-popping numbers there. Good for him. Okay, anything else Jacksonville related, Eddie?
I will say on the defensive side for them, we were on the on Querying Company on Tuesday afternoon. We had John Ozier of Jaguars.com. Yeah. He said if the Colts offensive line...
He wrote a Cathedral High School golf article on us back in the day.
Of course you would remember that.
He used to write for Colts.com.
I know, but you would remember the Cathedral part of that, wouldn't you? Because you were on the golf team. You were the headliner, Kevin Bowen.
Sure.
Anyway.
There are a couple quotes in there.
From you?
From myself, yes.
Okay. Self-promotion. See if you can find. Yeah. Do you still have it on the fridge at home?
That's a great question. I think it's. My mom made me a scrapbook when I graduated from high school. I think it's somewhere in there.
Oh, Go Mama Bowen.
Go Mama Bowen. I'm sure that's exactly what. Maddie, you want to read this tonight? Can I read this to Rosie?
I'm sure that'll put her to sleep.
Yeah, that's a great point.
But he said that if the Colts offensive line can hold up, that there's room for the Colts wide receivers to exploit the secondary, because outside of Tyson Campbell, he feels like the secondary is not that great. And I was looking at the numbers; they're about middle of the pack when it comes to completion percentage, but they surrendered the 5th most passing yards last year. So I think there's a realm of possibilities where Anthony Richardson could have some success in the passing game. And I think the 2 guys to watch out for personally, I think will be either Kylan Granson or Will Mallory. One of those 2 will have a big day out of the tight end group, because both those players have had a strong connection with Richardson in the 2 preseason games that Richardson suited up. And then Evan Hull or Deion Jackson out of the backfield. Those 2 to me are going to be the 2 to watch.
We'll see about Zach Moss. Eddie, coming back from practice today, Moss was not in a no-contact jersey. He had like a little, some sort of wrap padding on that left arm. He did like the He did the turnover gauntlet or the ball security gauntlet they go through, where all the coaches and staff members
smash them with medicine balls,
smash them with pads and everything. But then when they did like the rotation of running backs, he wasn't, with it was Deion Jackson first, then Evan Hall. So I'm not ready to say for sure that he's going to play just yet. So I'll continue to keep you updated on that. But unless you've got anything else to add, and we'll see the injury report. We try to do this podcast right around when it'll come out. I think, unless I missed somebody, it looked like pretty much everybody was practicing.
EJ Speed cleared out of concussion protocol.
Cleared again. Leonard, I assume he'll be cleared. I don't know if the independent neuro is the final one to clear, but today was another practice that he was practicing without a red jersey on. I mean, it's not a no contact jersey. Everybody's out of the red in practice. So we'll give our picks to round things out.
Okay. Are we doing season or are we doing game?
Let's go Twitter questions.
Okay.
And then let's continue to tease. The ultimate tease right here.
Wow, Kevin, look at you. You're teasing on a podcast.
By the way, I think we just got the old injury report here, okay?
Okay. You got it pulled up?
Yeah, I got it pulled up.
Okay.
Guess how many Colts did not practice today?
1.
0. All 53 practice. Zach Moss limited. Forearm is what they officially listed at. Shaq Leonard full. There you go.
So he's got to be clearing soon.
Yes, I would. Again, I expect him to play on Sunday, but that's just me. And I know very little.
Twitter question number 1 comes from Chris. I want to win a week 1 game. It's been almost a decade. Do you think Shane Steichen...
Is this Coach Irsay here?
Right, it could be. Do you think Shane Steichen will let Anthony Richardson run wild if it will get us a week 1 win? Or do you think he tries to hide his hand?
Oh, no, I think he's going to... I really think he's going to let him loose. Now, again, I mean, how much is it going to look like IU's offense on Saturday?
Oh, gosh.
I don't think necessarily it is. He's going to run. 8.5 attempts at Florida, Eddie, okay, for Richardson per game. I saw last year Fields and Hurts were like right around 10. What do you think? If you had to go a per game carries for Anthony Richardson this year, what number are you going with?
Per game? What number did you just
8.5 at Florida. 10 was kind of where Fields and Hurts hovered around last year.
I'm hoping, okay, designed or in total? Because I think there are 2 different questions here.
Well, sure. And I think that is a fair question. What do? Do you get a handful of design and then he's scrambling for 3 or 4 more?
Yeah, so I would put it around 9.
Yeah.
I'll say about 5 to 6 designed a game, and then you get about 3 scrambles.
It's kind of crazy to me. I know
that's 153 rush attempts, by the way.
Yeah, boy, it seems
that's a large number.
Yeah, it's a lot when you put it like that. It was kind of crazy to me when you think about, and I know this has been a general theme of mine here throughout the season, just the lack of support for Richardson. Like I did the depth chart thing earlier this week, and I had a dozen takeaways on the depth chart. You can find that up on 1075thefan.com.
Look at you.
And I went back and thought to myself, okay, what did Andrew Luck have in that rookie season? And obviously the rookie skill guys around him, were huge. But, you still had what? 1,300-yard Reggie Wayne? I mean, Reggie was damn good in that 2012 season. And I've told you guys endlessly what I think about the Green Bay game specifically and what he did on that Sunday afternoon. But then you think back to even like Peyton's rookie year. And I know maybe this won't resonate to everybody, but I mean, you had a Marvin in his 3rd season. You had Marshall Faulk, a little bit into his career. Ken Dilger was a guy that was into his career. Torrance Small, I know it's not a household name, but like he was an important guy in that rookie season as well. And that's where I just look at the stuff around Richardson. I'm thinking, wait a minute. You're asking Anthony Richardson as a rookie to uplift a running back room right now you would call one of the worst in the NFL?
Yeah.
You're asking him to uplift a wide receiver room right now that you would call a bottom quartile room in the NFL?
Yep.
And a tight end room that I have some intrigue by, but no one can say right now they're a proven group by any means.
Negatory.
So that's where I'm just like, oh man, there is a lot on this kid's plate. A lot on this kid's plate.
Conroy, Do you think Chris Ballard hasn't built enough support around Anthony Richardson because he is stuck in his philosophy, or because he has no experience building support around a rookie quarterback? He hasn't had to do this before. Andrew Luck had experience in the NFL, and every other quarterback was a stopgap year to year. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, I'd say stuck in philosophy. Yeah, I mean, when you think about the Ballard era now, 7 years into it, I mean, the best pass catcher he has had were both Gregson guys. If you want to label Hilton and Doyle. We'll see if, I don't know, maybe 2 to 3 years down the road, Pittman, Jelani Woods, whoever, somebody else changes that conversation here. Boy, Titus Howard on injured reserve. That's good news for the Colts heading into week 2. So yeah, I'd say stuck in philosophy more than anything on that.
Titus Howard has been placed on injured reserve for the Texans. He is out the first 4 games of the season.
I could have sworn I just said that.
Did you?
Is that an echo?
Sorry, I was reading a text while you were talking, so I literally could have just not been paying attention.
For me, I was texting Maddie earlier. 0 apologies from you, Eddie. I know you're gutting it out today.
That's all good. Wyatt, if there is no long-term contract signed between now and week 4, what do you think the crowd reception for Jonathan Taylor will be in Lucas Oil Stadium? Whether that's the Titans game, which he thinks is unlikely, or the Cleveland Browns or New Orleans Saints, or even if he's on the sidelines for the game against the Jaguars.
Ooh, on the sidelines. Are we getting a booing of Andrew Luck situation there? Yeah. I don't see him being on the sidelines. I don't know. Maybe it's a question that I can ask Shane Steichen on Friday.
He wasn't on the sidelines in Philly.
No.
Per Nate Atkins, he was nowhere to be seen until after the game. He was the first one out of the locker room.
I assume whichever game he makes his debut, you would not announce the offense for that game, and then as soon as he rushes for 100 yards, everything's fine. Right?
So what?
I guess there would be some boos, but I don't know, if he gets a 2-yard loss to start the game, does everyone start booing? I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be that naive. There will be some boos, but if you run, score, win, the boos will quickly subside.
I don't know about you, but most of the things that I've seen are fans supporting Jonathan Taylor and wanting
Oh, really? I think
Ballard
fans
and
hate him.
Irsay to step up and pay. I think it's about 50-50.
Really? I would say it's 70-30, 80-20. I think fans are he's turned into spoiled, his agent's gotten a hold of him, he's greedy, blah, blah, blah. I feel like that is the majority I hear more than the reverse of it. I could be wrong.
I guess it depends on your Twitter timeline.
Sure, yeah.
Because mine's the latter, not the former.
Uber positive timeline over there from
I guess so.
Eddie Garrison.
2 questions left. Clayton, do you think part of Jonathan Taylor's situation is caused by Chris Ballard's unwillingness to get creative with the cap and contracts the way other teams have? Some of these contracts with less of a cap hit and bigger bonuses seem like a potential solution in my eyes.
I really think it's more market value than anything, Clayton, to be honest with you. And again, I think some of the, in general, Colts approach to their contracts, not the cap, their contracts is a little bit more Irsay driven. I think I mentioned this before. If you were to rank the 32 owners on how rich they are and how willing they are to just spend upfront money, I would not put Jim Irsay in the upper quartile. Now, again, all of that is taken with a grain of salt. I'm comparing him to the other 31 owners in the league. But I also think Chris Ballard has been extremely stringent, borderline stubborn, in how he defines market value and his unwillingness to deviate from that. Again, when you walk into free agency, what's an expensive store out there, Eddie Garrison?
Oh, what are we going for, KB? What are we shopping for?
You're shopping for clothing. I'm a big Old Navy guy. Okay. I call that reasonable.
Yes. Buckle?
I don't know Buckle. Should I know Buckle?
Sounds
like a dog in a
bedazzled jeans.
Disney. Okay,
Their jeans are Buckle. Very expensive.
I walk into Buckle, I better know what I'm walking into. And that's, I think, how free agency is. If you want to get better, and I say that in quotes,
But if you want to find some proven, notable talent, you're going to have to walk into Buckle. Old Navy's not open yet. So that's where you're at. I'm going to stick with Old Navy, though.
Yeah. That's not good for the comparison you just made there.
No, that's not. Should we give a Super Bowl pick, by the way?
Oh, gosh, no.
Why not?
Actually, hold on. Yeah, let's see if you do the Raiders again. That way I can just
Did I do Cowboys Raiders?
hold it over your head.
I'm
I
going
can't
to stick with
remember.
the Cowboys.
I can't remember, though.
I'm sticking with the Cowboys.
Really?
Cowboys beat.
Gosh, KB, come on now.
Cowboys beat. I don't know if they're going to win, though. Let's see here. Boy, I'm torn on the AFC, man. Torn on it.
I don't know who to pick out of the NFC.
What do you think, Jets, Cowboys?
Oh, boy.
Does that just make you want to bash your head against the wall?
Rodgers and Jerry Jones?
Can you imagine?
Would there be...
Let's just embrace it. Let's go there. Kevin Bowen right here. Jets, Cowboys.
Clipped, saving now.
Do you have one? You can't leave me out to dry here.
You're putting me on the spot. I don't like
podcast.
it.
We can't have that many Twitter questions yet. Do you want to ask
left.
the next Twitter question?
We have one left.
think-
I will do. Gosh, man. I'll take. I guess I'll take San Francisco. In hopes Brock Purdy can make it with him.
Have fun cheering for Brock Purdy.
Well, my dad's a 49ers fan, so I want to see it for him more so than Brock Purdy. AFC wise,
I mean, flip a coin, right?
until proven otherwise, Kansas City.
Boo. Boring.
Sorry.
All right, we got any more left?
Yeah, Wake Spike, he is up. Last Twitter question. Every media outlet I've seen has been praising Shane Steichen for his work with Anthony Richardson all preseason. Meanwhile, I've not heard much of anything about Chris Ballard that is positive. Is Chris Ballard's seat getting hotter, or is Jim Irsay moving into a Jerry Jones type of role where the front office is more a figurehead than decision maker? Have a great long weekend. This must have been sent in last week.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of typical once the draft simmers down, you hear mostly from the head coach. I mean, it's draft, support, develop. Well, the development part is all in Steichen, and right now you're in developmental period. You aren't really in major support period. Obviously, the draft is, when it is. As far as Ballard hot seat, again, we had Bob Kravitz on our morning show earlier this week, and Bob, he's got the Colts at 2 or 3 wins. And
wow.
So I said to Bob, I go, okay, under that hypothetical, does Chris Ballard retain his job? Eddie, I can't imagine in NFL history you've ever had a GM in year 6 or 7 win 4 and then 3 games and maintain his job without a division title on that resume with 1 playoff win on that. Like, there's no way, right?
I don't think so.
So this is me thinking, but I get what Bob was saying. Bob's put himself in Irsay's shoes, and I agree. I don't think Irsay would all of a sudden just pull the plug just to do it. So, I don't think the seat is very hot, even if the record got as ugly as that would. Eddie Garrison, I'm putting you on this on the hot seat. I need picks from you. I need an AFC Super Bowl pick.
I just gave it to you.
You said who?
Kansas City.
God, my head is.
Okay, I won't go. All right, I won't go chalk with Kansas City. I'll give you someone else.
Bash me in the head after that.
Baltimore.
You and I both are struggling right now in the pod. Okay, Baltimore. Our Super Bowl picks just horrific. Okay, I've got Jets and Cowboys. You've got Ravens and 49ers. Sunday pick for the Colts. 5-point spread. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
27-20 Jags.
God, it was a close one, huh?
Yeah, I'd like to think the D-line shows up a little. Okay, I'm really super curious to see how Jacksonville spies Richardson.
I am too. I will go Jags 31, Colts 17.
Okay. That's a big cover for Jacksonville there.
I am a
And
big.
You've got the over, right? 45 is what we said for over-under.
Yeah, and I literally just said unders are one of my favorite bets in week one of the preseason.
Do you want to give the win-loss prediction first, or do you want me to?
Since you went first with the prediction of the season or the game, I'll do the season prediction for me. I have them winning 5.
Anything more to add on Y5?
I think it's just a number where it's like you look at their schedule and you say, oh yeah, they can split with Tennessee possibly, they could split with Houston possibly, they could sweep Houston possibly. Then there's also like they could beat Vegas in week 17 because Vegas could be mailing it in and Jimmy G could not be out there, so you could be facing Aiden O'Connell. What does Tampa Bay look like? And that's coming off your bye week. Is it Baker Mayfield still, or is Kyle Trask the starting quarterback? How does Carolina look with Bryce Young? Is Bryce Young still in one piece by week 9? So, I mean, there's going to be a game in there or two where they will win a game they're not supposed to win. There will be games where that you think they're going to win that they will lose. And with Vegas having it at 6.5, I'm just not sold on the secondary of the Colts. And based off of the schedule of some of these quarterbacks and receivers they have to play, I'm not very optimistic on being able to keep up with teams.
I'm going to go with 7.
Okay. Any particular reason why?
I think the schedule's a joke.
I do agree with you on that.
You laid out some of the reasons why, Eddie. I mean, when you break down the game-by-game approach, okay, Sunday. What do you consider Sunday? One of the harder games on the Colts schedule?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
Week one, yeah.
I mean, at Baltimore and at Cincinnati are the 2 hardest.
At Jacksonville, too.
Yeah, and then at Jacksonville, home to Jacksonville, I'd probably put also up there. I don't really know what else I'd necessarily group in that top tier. But let's just call it one of the 5 toughest games that you'll have all season. They're a 5-point underdog in one of the 5 toughest. So that means they have 12 games that they theoretically will be less than a 5-point underdog. And, I mean, in a kind of a field goal flip, you just laid out some of the quarterbacks, man. Just go through the schedule. And this is if these guys are starting in the game. And if Richardson goes down, it's not like they're running out there just some bum.
Right.
Minshew can still get it done to some degree. So I don't know. Call me crazy. I have 7 and 10, but I have them winning the last 3. The last 3 is Falcons, Raiders, Texans. So to your point, I mean, Desmond Ridder. I mean, at that point, there's no way Garoppolo's still starting, right? I mean, hell, it very well could be Aiden O'Connell. Mm-hmm. Aiden O'Connell, then what, Stroud? And so, I don't know. Yeah, I'm going with 7.
I mean, I see them getting to 7.
Which I feel like I'm kind of on the high end of my media colleagues with that. Big time high end. I mean, certainly Kravitz and Doyle.
Internally, I hope they don't get there.
Oh, sure. I mean, trust me, the best case scenario is what, 4? Best case scenario is, 3 or 4. Richardson somehow is the one that's carrying you to 3 or 4 wins, and I guess your defense would look horrible then. And then you, and then you have a top 3 pick.
I want to see Marvin Harrison Jr. in Indianapolis. That's what I want to see, Kev.
He is Eddie Garrison. I am Kevin Bowen. One final time, Eddie, to pick him.
Voice crack?
I know. It's been one of those days.
You going through puberty again, man?
Yeah, I don't know if I went full voice crack, but it definitely was teetering on it there. I had to watch my inflection here to round things out. You got anything else, man?
No, I will tweet out the link.
I'm nervous about Notre Dame on Saturday.
Really?
At NC State.
Why are you nervous?
It's a road game.
You got to trust Sam Hartman. He's played there before, hasn't he?
Well, but, I mean, it's not Cupcake Central here like it was the first 2 weeks.
And Hartman, we trust.
Everybody have a great weekend as well. Enjoy Sunday, and we'll talk to you on Monday. Kevin's Corner, signing off.